Hi everyone, welcome to another video at Lifeasamedstudent. My name's Nabeel and I'm a final year medical student studying in Liverpool in the UK. If you're interested in videos on what it's like studying medicine, tips on studying, organisation, please do subscribe to the channel for more content. Now the plan today was to be talking to you about how I stay organised in med school, but after the horror that was this week, I'm instead here telling you about how I spent the week being projectile vomited all over, powering through a 12.5-hour shift, and just some of the other things that med school interviews, open days don't quite prepare you for. So I thought the week before last was a pretty intense week, but the week I've just had has been nothing short of brutal. So a couple of weeks ago I was taught how to insert something called a nasogastric tube. It's a tube that goes down your nose and into your stomach. We give them to help people who have difficulty swallowing or can't swallow, because the tube leads into the stomach and you can feed people through the tube. The other thing it's used for is, say if someone has a blockage and food can't leave the stomach, we put the tube in so that we can take the contents of the stomach out. You know how they say better out than in. The week just gone, I had the chance to actually insert one of these nasogastric or NG tubes, a specific type of tube called a Ryle's tube. And this was to help someone who had, like I say, a blockage and food couldn't go out that way. So they'd spent the past few days vomiting everything up. So by putting this tube in, we were looking to drain the contents of the stomach out and help the patient to not be vomiting continuously. But as you could probably imagine, having a tube put down your nose, which you have to then swallow and gulp to make sure it goes into your stomach, leads to gagging, leads to vomiting. Well, in this case, led to projectile vomiting. It was like something out of a horror film. The patient handled it like a champ, and I wasn't in there by myself. I was with my supervising junior doctor, my F1 doctor. Looking back on it, I just find it insane how, like, between me and the doctor, like, neither of us you don't even have the chance to be grossed out, because it is unbelievably gross. But when you're in there, you're so focused on making sure that the patient's okay and that you're actually getting the tube into where it needs to go. So it wasn't until after everything was done and we made sure the patient was like new bedding, new clothes and everything, to finally drop the straight face and just be like, that was actually gross. And I just remember like getting all paranoid that there's stuff in my shoes, in my hair. Honestly, I washed my hands for like 5 minutes, and yeah, long shower when I went home after that particular day. But no one teaches you that before med school, how you're expected to respond to when all of this is going on around you. And I'd certainly never thought about it before, and just being in the middle of the thing, I find it odd looking back on it now how unbothered I was by it, because that kind of thing grosses me out, to be honest. I know there are some people who are like, can get dead into like Dr. Pimple Popper, and when people get tagged in gross stuff, I hate that. So I don't know what it is when I'm actually in the clinical environment, how that stuff doesn't bother me. But for my first ever go at trying to put one of these NG tubes in, for it to have gone like that is just, tragic. It turned out okay in the end. I mean, the patient was able to tolerate the tube, and doctor and I both lived to see another day. And actually the following day, or a couple of days after that, I was then on an on-call shift, which is the next part of the saga that is this week. So on-call shift, 9 a.m. till 9:30. The point of that is, standard shift is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The night team will take over at sort of 9:30, 10, but then there's that gap from 5 p.m. to 10 at night where the on-call team are the ones sort of looking after patients across a number of wards to cover the whole hospital, basically. So as the regular day doctors, 9 to 5 doctors, get to the end of their shift and are about to go home, but there are still jobs outstanding, say patients still need bloods, or patients are getting results of tests back and need follow-up actions based on what happens on those tests, the on-call team will take over from there. So a lot of the time you might not be particularly busy from sort of 9 a.m. till 5 p.m, but during that time you're just doing your normal job that you would do on your ward anyway. So it's essentially just a really long 12.5 hour shift, which I asked to follow my F1 doctor for because it's something that I definitely want to get experience of before I'm finally qualified. And it was a very good learning experience. I had 2 more NG tubes to put in that night. One of them went smoothly, the other one needed some assistance, but I got completely caught out by how hungry you can get on one of those shifts, because I'd planned to, eat at 6 o'clock, but as the shift unfolded, it just happened that all of the calls, they say on call because the doctor who's on call has got like a phone bleeper, whatever it is, and if they're needed, they get a call come through on the phone. All of those sort of tasks and jobs started coming through at bang on 6 p.m. So from 6 o'clock onwards, it was, we were bouncing around from ward to ward, doing things that ranged from prescribing medicines, putting in cannulas, putting in these NG tubes, reviewing unwell patients, non-stop from 6 through to the end of the shift at 9:30. So I hadn't eaten anything from since I had my lunch at 1 until 9:30, which is not a nice feeling. So many times I've actually heard doctors go on about when you get the chance to eat, and I suppose my chance that I missed out on that particular time was between 5 and 6. I should have capitalised on not having many calls coming through at that time. The particular on-call shift that I was on, thankfully, apparently wasn't too busy in terms of how they usually are. So I was actually given the chance to get involved with stuff, which is always good. As a medical student, you always want the chance to actually get involved. I was speaking to, my F1 and some of the other doctors as well, who have told me about how times when they've had students with them on shifts that have just been absolutely manic, and there's not really been the opportunity for a medical student to do anything because you've got to be really on it in terms of how you prioritise getting from place to place, depending on how urgent a call sounds, how unwell a patient seems. These are actually really interesting parts of medical school, I've found. As a final year student, when you've got more competencies, you're trained to do more things, it's been really good to get involved in these more unusual shift patterns, and also getting used to the fact that, we finished at 9:30, we handed over to the night team. That was done by about 10. I then went back to the doctor's mess to finally eat. I don't think I was home till about 11 that night, and then back into hospital for 9 the following morning. It's good practice for the job to come, but kind of not fun for the whole rest and recovery side of things. Plus, that on-call shift meant that I had some time going on wards other than my own. I'm basically during the day exclusively on a respiratory ward, and being on the on-call shift made me appreciate some of the niceties that come with that ward, because we were called to a gastrointestinal ward at one point, and that place just reeked. I'm very glad that, compared to some of these other wards, the respiratory ward is fairly mild on the odour side of things, which I now have a newfound appreciation of, even if sometimes what we'll find with a lot of conditions is patients end up quite confused on that ward. So in between, being projectile vomited on this on-call shift, I've had to deal with a lot of abuse hurled my way and the other doctor's way, and it can get quite loud and quite unsettling, particularly as, again, it's something that you don't really get prepared for. It's until you've actually spent some time being able to properly handle situations where people will be effing and blinding, not because of anything that any member of the team's done, but because when you're unwell and with certain medications, it can lead to confusion, and you pick up ways of dealing with that with time and being able to calm people down so that you can still go about, looking after them. It's also crazy to think just how desensitized you can get to certain things. I lost count of how many bags of questionable stuff I've held in my hand and carried to the bin over the course of this past week. Not just the stuff coming from the NG tubes, stuff we've drained out of people's chests and other places. And it's so weird how, again, while I'm on the ward, you're just kind of not even thinking about it. It's just like you've gone and you've done a procedure, you've got what you've got from the procedure. It's like, right now I need to put that in the bin, wash my hands and get on with the next job. So a pretty gross week overall, and I'm sure there'll be many more like it to come. But that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you found it interesting, and if you liked the video, please do leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.